Once you walked through this doorway, you never returned home again. For millions of Africans, this was the final place they would ever see on their own land. Behind these walls, people waited in darkness, listening to the ocean outside, knowing the ships were coming. But the true horror did not begin at the coast. It began far inland, in villages that would vanish overnight. In the dead of night, entire villages could disappear. Families were separated within minutes. Homes were consumed by fire. The cries of children mixed with the sound of burning wood. For many, this was the last time they would ever see their homeland. Those captured were forced to march toward the coast. Some walked for days, others for weeks. Exhaustion, hunger, and fear followed every step. And ahead of them, waiting beside the ocean, were the forts.
And then came the final passage. The door of no return. Beyond this doorway waited the Atlantic Ocean, a vast unknown that would separate millions from their homeland forever. Once they crossed this threshold, there was no turning back, no final goodbye, no return home. For millions of Africans, this was the last moment they would ever stand on their own land. And ahead of them, waiting beyond the waves, were the ships. The ships waiting beyond the coast would carry millions across the Atlantic. For many, the journey itself became a death sentence. Packed beneath the decks, hundreds were chained together in darkness. Disease, starvation, and suffocation spread rapidly. Far above them, the ocean continued endlessly, but even in the darkness, resistance never disappeared. Some fought against the ships, others fought to preserve their identity. Across generations, African traditions survived. Music, language, memory, all endured. And despite everything that was taken, the spirit of a people survived the Atlantic. Their legacy would reshape the world forever.
The transatlantic slave trade would continue for centuries. Across the Americas, entire economies were built on enslaved labor. But even through unimaginable suffering, African culture survived. It survived in music, in language, in food, and in faith. Across generations, the memory endured, and the legacy of those taken from Africa would reshape the world forever. Over time, voices against slavery began to rise. Rebellions erupted, movements grew, and eventually, the transatlantic slave trade was abolished. But the memory never disappeared. Today, the forts still stand along the West African coast as reminders of one of history's darkest chapters. For millions, the journey ended far from home, but their story would never disappear. Across oceans, across generations, the echoes of the Atlantic slave trade can still be felt today.